Lee had always prided herself on being the most disciplined, determined, and rational member of her family. She had earned her reputation in the medical community through years of accuracy, caution, and an almost unwavering certainty that she always knew what was right. But nothing in her life, not even the most difficult medical operations, compared to the fury that erupted within her when she uncovered Luna's secret. The young woman was bearing a child, and this child was no ordinary child. It was the result of chaos, blunders, and betrayal, threatening to demolish every carefully crafted wall Lee had erected around her family and herself. The revelation had come about by mistake. A missing file, a half-finished appointment, and Lee was suddenly confronted with evidence she couldn't ignore. The ultrasound, weak but unmistakable, revealed a life growing inside Luna. Lee's hands trembled when she first noticed it. She, the woman famed for her cool demeanor, felt the walls closing in on her. Luna, her niece whom she had tolerated but never fully embraced, was pregnant, and if word spread, everything could crumble. Luna's presence in the Forrester world had always bothered Lee. She was unpredictable, inexperienced, and frequently reckless. Lee had repeatedly cautioned her to avoid scandal and maintain control, but Luna had failed terribly. With a child on the way, the guilt would be permanent, locking them all to a future Lee didn't want to see. That night, Lee sat alone in her dark kitchen. The silence in the house was oppressive, with every tick of the clock beating against her temples. She poured herself a glass of wine, her fingers shaky. She told herself she had worked too hard and made too many sacrifices to let Luna undo it all. It was more than just Luna's faults. It was about the family name, honor, and what would happen if this kid was born. It would draw them all into controversy, gossip, and shame. She closed her eyes and mumbled to herself phrases that seemed poisonous. The baby can't exist. Lee put on her customary serene professionalism the next morning. She went into the hospital as if nothing was amiss, her heels clicking on the clean flooring and her white coat flowing at her sides. However, inside her, every step was tinged with shame and resolve. She was already putting together a plan. She was well versed in medical procedures for dealing with pregnancy. She knew what could be done discreetly and without anyone knowing. If she interfered early enough, no one would ever know the truth. Luna would heal, while the infant would never see the light of day. But Lee recognized that planning needed to be precise. She'd need to persuade Luna, gain her trust, and then seize power. It wasn't going to be simple because Luna was emotional, vulnerable, and overly trusting of others. Lee decided that trust might be used as a weapon. When she confronted Luna, she disguised her objectives as concern. "You need to think carefully about what you're doing," Lee continued, her voice stern yet with a hint of care. "You are young, Luna. You have your entire life ahead of you. A child will tie you down. It will wreck everything you've worked for." Luna's eyes welled up with tears. She didn't expect Lee to be supportive, but she did wish for understanding. "I didn't plan this," Luna muttered. "But this is my baby. I can't simply pretend it doesn't exist." Lee's jaw tightened, her rage barely contained. "Sometimes pretending is the only way to survive," she stated coldly. "You're not sure what you're getting into. You have no idea how much misery this will cause. Not only for you, but for everyone around you." Days passed and Lee got more determined. Every conversation with Luna devolved into a quarrel. Every glance became a war of wills. Lee discussed careers, shattered reputations, and financial turmoil. She portrayed Luna's future as dismal and suffocating. Luna slowly began to mistrust herself. But at night, when Luna laid her hand on her stomach, she felt faint stirrings of life inside her. It simultaneously horrified and reassured her. She couldn't bring herself to consider letting go. However, Lee's words lingered in her mind, wearing her down. The struggle ripped Luna apart. She confided in RJ, but she couldn't bring herself to reveal all. He knew something was wrong when he saw the fear in her eyes, but Luna denied it, stating she was all right. RJ wanted to believe her, but he sensed a secret too great for her to bear alone. Meanwhile, Lee's scheme took a darker turn. She began researching medical measures to ensure that Luna never bore the baby to term. She considered sneaking drugs into Luna's tea, or setting up a routine appointment that would turn out to be far more nefarious. Each thought terrified her, but her determination only grew. To Lee, it was not murder. It was for protection. It was a preventive measure. It was necessary. The rain pelted the windows the night she was about to act. Luna lay asleep in the guest room, tired from days of arguing. Lee stood outside the door, holding a little bottle tucked in her pocket. Her heart pumped and her mind shouted, but she persuaded herself it was the only option. She could end it now before anyone knew, before Luna harmed herself permanently. But when she reached for the doorknob, something stopped her. She heard Luna's faint murmur through the crack in the door. The girl spoke in her sleep, her words weak and frail. Lee froze as she said, "Please don't take my baby." The vial burned in her pocket. For a little moment, she sensed the gravity of what she was about to do, the immensity of the decision she had almost made. She moved back, shaking, her serenity shaken. She assured herself she wasn't weak, she wasn't hesitant, but the fact was obvious. For all of her ruthlessness and determination, Lee had almost passed a boundary from which she could never return. The days that followed were a haze of secrecy and anxiety. Lee tried to regain control, but Luna became increasingly suspicious. She began to sense the danger, realizing that her aunt's preoccupation with control may go far further than she had imagined. Luna became protective of herself, observing every move Lee made. She avoided the kitchen while Lee was cooking, left her beverages unfinished, and found reasons to avoid private appointments. Nonetheless, Lee did not give up. Her fascination developed into desperation. She was troubled by the idea of that child being born and growing up as a reminder of Luna's mistakes. At times, she convinced herself that she was rescuing Luna. At other times, she admitted in the deepest recesses of her mind that she was protecting herself. Luna, meantime, turned inward. She confided in no one, frightened that telling the truth would make her even more vulnerable. She felt stuck between her desire for the life within her and her fear of what Lee may do. Every day was a battle for survival, remaining one step ahead, and keeping her secret hidden until she could no longer conceal it. When RJ eventually confronted her and demanded explanations, Luna broke down. She didn't tell him everything. She couldn't bring herself to accuse Lee directly, but she did reveal the truth about her pregnancy. RJ was surprised, but instead of backing away, he grabbed her. His support gave Luna a glimmer of optimism, a reminder that she wasn't alone. That hope was precisely what Lee feared. She noticed how RJ looked at Luna, and how his presence boosted her resolve. Lee couldn't take the thought of RJ standing by her side and assisting her in raising the baby. She couldn't let this happen. The war between them raged gradually, unsaid but apparent. Luna clung to her unborn child with all of her weak courage, while Lee plodded in the shadows, divided between doubt and determination. Each day brought them closer to the breaking point. It was no longer only a war over Luna's destiny. It was a war for her spirit, for her freedom to choose her own path, against the oppressive grip of a woman who thought she knew better. And no one would come out unscathed in that battle. Not Luna, not RJ, nor even Lee herself. Lee's obsession had cast an intangible shadow over the Forrester estate and everywhere Luna visited. She believed she was hiding it effectively, that her piercing eyes and carefully calibrated words were too delicate to reveal her intentions. But Luna felt it. She felt the chilly glare, lingering presence and persistent pressure. First she attempted to justify it. Lee was a doctor. Lee was strict. Perhaps Lee was simply trying to help in her own dominating manner. But the more Luna thought about it, the more the pieces came together. Her aunt wasn't simply disagreeable, she was dangerous. RJ also spotted it. He'd noticed Lee's countenance harden every time Luna caressed her stomach. He'd seen how she leaned in too close and questioned Luna, as if she were interrogating her rather than reassuring her. After Lee had left in a flurry of clipped words and frosty glares, RJ turned to Luna with fire in his eyes. "What's she doing with you?" he demanded. Luna's lips twitched. She wished to tell him everything, but her voice failed her. She was worried about sounding paranoid, afraid of making it a reality. "She doesn't think I'm ready," she muttered. "That's not just a worry," RJ stated firmly. "That is control. That is terror. Secrets like this have broken my family apart." Luna burst into tears as she said, "You must tell me the truth." She told him about the pregnancy, the icy talks in which Lee had pressured her to terminate it, and the impression that something much deeper lurked beneath her aunt's words. RJ listened intently, his chest constricting at each detail. When Luna acknowledged that she was scared that Lee might harm her, RJ's arms tightened around her protectively. "She won't touch you," he said. "Not while I'm here." But RJ underestimated Lee's tenacity. Lee's internal conflict grew worse. Her thoughts replayed her own words again and over. "This baby cannot exist." The sensible part of her recognized the legal, moral, and emotional ramifications were too severe to risk. However, the other side, motivated by fear and control, murmured to her in the silent hours of the night. If she acted now, it would all be gone. Nobody would know. She could spare the family from embarrassment. She could prevent Luna from making a mistake that would wreck her life. Luna fainted one afternoon at the hospital, which presented an opportunity. Stress, tiredness, and even dehydration, whatever the cause, it was enough to get her admitted for testing. Lee sensed her chance. Standing in the stark white room, staring at Luna, unconscious in the bed, she almost believed it was fate. All she needed to do was give the order. She might make the decision without letting Luna know. But before she could take a stride toward the monitors, Finn entered. "Lee," he said, his face wrinkled. "What are you doing here? I didn't think you were on call." Lee froze, her mask slipping for a few seconds. She then feigned a smile. "Luna's family. Of course I came." But Finn didn't seem convinced. He had grown up under his mother's strict scrutiny. He recognized when Lee was hiding something. He remained close to Luna's bed, checking the monitors personally, refusing to leave his cousin alone. Lee seethed internally as her strategy crumbled in front of her. Later, Finn cornered her in the corridor. "I don't know what's going on with you," he stated firmly, "but Luna is carrying a baby, and if you're considering pressing her into making a decision she doesn't want to make, stop." Lee bristled. "She is too young, too naive. She doesn't know what she's doing. That child will wreck her life." "You don't get to decide that," Finn said. "You taught me to respect life, to defend it, and you want to take it away?" The accusation sliced through Lee like a razor. For the first time she faltered, her confidence shattered. She couldn't confess her weakness. Instead, she turned and walked away, her white coat swishing like a defiance banner. Luna's pregnancy was finally revealed, as mysteries in Los Angeles often are. Steffy was the first to confront RJ about it, with a strong tone tinged with concern. "Do you really understand what this means?" she demanded. "You're both quite young. This is going to change everything." RJ defended Luna furiously, stating that he loved her and would always support her. But Steffy couldn't get over her discomfort. She understood the Forrester world was already chaotic. Adding another child, especially in such dire circumstances, was like putting gasoline on a fire. And then there was Sheila. She had a way of locating flaws in people's armor and penetrating into the shadows where secrets lurked. She heard enough whispers in the hospital to piece together the story. Luna was pregnant. Lee was desperate. Sheila could not resist the recipe. One night, Sheila cornered Lee in the parking garage, her eyes twinkling with hatred and glee. "You know," she whispered, "for someone who pretends to be so perfect, you're dancing very close to the edge." Lee tensed. "Stay out of my business," Sheila giggled quietly as she approached. "Oh, but this is my current business. You intend to get rid of your niece's kid. What would happen to your valuable career if that small secret became public? Your reputation? You'd be annihilated." Lee's heart raced, but she pressed her face against its normal mask. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know enough," Sheila said quietly. "I may keep quiet if you give me what I want. Protection. A place inside the family. Respect. Or else, everyone will find out who you really are." This was blatant blackmail, and it forced Lee into a corner she hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Luna gained strength. The more people attempted to dictate her choices, the more she clutched to her unborn kid. She confided more in RJ, relying on his support and finding strength in his belief in her. For the first time in her life, she realized she had something worth fighting for. A life, not just a dream or a relationship. The tension erupted at a family supper. Lee, Finn, Steffy, RJ, and Luna sat around the table, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Luna eventually broke the silence, her palm resting protectively on her stomach. I'm keeping my baby, she firmly stated, her voice wavering but clear. No one, not even you, Antley, is going to take that away from me. The table exploded. RJ quickly took her side, his arm slipping around her shoulders. Finn seems relieved, yet anxious about the challenges ahead. Steffi shook her head, concerned about the impending tempest the Foresters would confront. Lee's face hardened to stone. You're making a mistake, she growled. No, Luna replied, stunning everyone with her passion. The mistake is allowing you to control me. This is my life. My choice. It was the first time Luna had publicly challenged Lee, and it sent a shudder through the crowd. But Lee was not done. That night she sat alone, staring in the mirror. The woman who peered back wasn't the perfect doctor, the controlled matriarch, or the voice of reason. She was someone else, someone who had nearly ruined her own family in order to remove an unborn child. For the first time, Lee questioned whether she was the villain. The silence that followed brought her no comfort. The war wasn't over. Luna was determined to safeguard her unborn kid. RJ was prepared to battle for her. Finn and Steffi were stuck in the middle, divided between devotion and terror. Sheila lurked at the boundaries, ready to wield any secret as a weapon. Every decision Lee made from now on would affect not only Luna's destiny, but the entire family's. And as the weeks passed, everyone recognized one awful truth. This wasn't just a war for a baby. It was a struggle for dominance, power, and survival in a family already riddled with secrets.